it's an aspect of myself that is uh, very knowledgeable and very wise, because if that were not true, I would not be across from you looking at a reflection of you and me represents me and you. And so I'm very, very, very appreciative of the frequency that we are getting ready to vibrate with this particular.
I am so much looking forward to this. So let's get into it. In the 60s, you had the historical civil rights movement with the civil rights marches, the clashes, and the various other things that were going on for the struggle for equality.
Yes, sir.
You also had the anti-Vietnam War movement, so the clashes that were going on there as people expressed themselves. I lived through the riot. Martin Luther King was assassinated. I was there in Los Angeles for the Rodney King riots when that verdict came out in a way that just enraged people. So I've seen a lot of things. And yet, this period that we're going through now is unprecedented. In your opinion, young Pharaoh, what's going on?
Well, what's happening is we're looking at the unfolding of a 6,000-year-old agenda, which we can condense to say it's been a 200-year-old plan to commission the New World Order. So what a lot of people don't realize is if you, as I was having a conversation with someone who's a close friend of mine who happens to also be my bodyguard, we were discussing, the importance of history. And one of my, talking points was, if you erase history, then you erase someone's memory. And so what they've done is, by controlling 95% of the information, you've literally erased our memory. But the way, the brain is programmed is we need the concept of reality in order to give us a purpose to exercise behavior. So they've basically, in a sense, committed hypnosis on the world and replaced actual historical achievements with lifestyles. And now we're exhibiting behavior which is immoral, void of integrity, void of just spiritual principles that should be mandatory, because our behavior is reflecting lifestyle based upon a lifestyle that we are trying to obtain, which actually doesn't exist. So in short terms, I tell people, we were never meant to trade in our natal chart for a resume. Your natal chart told you who you was, it told you where your powers were, told you where, your weak points were, and you traded that in to say you're a cashier at McDonald's. So you'll never know who you really are, because you don't really know who you were to begin with. So what we're looking at right now is the last step of this plan. And the only reason that this plan is working is because we are making it work. So what a lot of people don't realize is the point of life. And the reason we don't the importance of knowing the point of life is because you can know someone's manipulating you out of your quality of life. So the supreme being, intelligence, the creator, the God, whatever people individually in their spiritual blueprint identify with, we can all agree with that they gave us free will. Whatever it is you believe in, we have free will. And so we have to ask ourselves, are you utilizing your free will, or is someone else utilizing your free will? If I can tell you what to think through the illusion of choice, for example, if I have orange juice, grape juice, and pop and water, and I take water out of there, and I tell you, what do you want, orange juice, grape juice, or pop? And you never even knew water was an option. So you just chose one and you thought you was using your free will, but really you only creating a reality based off of the choices that allow you to pick. So the choices that we've been allowed to make as humans on this planet for thousands of years, but just dealing with the last 200 within this specific country, have been limited to those who want to control what we choose to do with our free will. And so this is where free thinkers come in. This is where conspiracy theorists come in. This is where intellects come in. And this is just people who know it's something more life than what they've been told come in.
I love it.
Yes, sir.
Now, I started off as a young disc jockey at age 15. So I started young and was blessed to know a lot of people. So I actually got to spend time with Dr. Martin Luther King.
Yes, sir.
And that's a whole story for a whole chapter at another time. I was also privileged to know Malcolm X.
Yes, sir.
What a brilliant mind. And now there are people saying young Pharaoh is like a young Malcolm X. So I've got to dig a little bit. Who is young Pharaoh?
hit. Young Pharaoh, according to my self-description at the level of awareness of self I've obtained at this moment in time, I would describe myself as a polymath. For those of you who may not know what a polymath are, watching at home, a polymath is someone who has obtained elite level of intellect within the top 1% category of a particular subject, and then spanning that across many subjects. So a monomath, mono means one or singular, will be someone who has obtained a 1% category or 1% level of intelligence within that category and within that subject. A polymath is someone who has made the same intellectual level of achievement in many subjects. So I would consider myself a polymath, a genius, and a self-developing organism at a constant rate. I'm very focused on the development of myself.
Which leads me to my next question.
Yes, sir.
What drove you to become young Pharaoh?
My soul, which is the driving force of us all, whether we listen to it or not. And so ever since I was a kid, I've been drawn to ancient Egypt specifically, but Black history totally. Mm-hmm. And not to say I've been drawn to battle other people or, knock other ethnicities. Like I like Vikings, I like Nordic mythology. I'm a man. I like it. Basically, if you have a shield and an axe, I'll probably like you. So I don't knock other people's cultures, but the one that spoke specifically to me was the one that my ancestors left behind for me, and that would be Egypt. And I've always been, passionate about it. I've always been drawn to it. Ever since I was a kid. It's not my biological grandfather, but I call him my grandfather. Just a being in my life. I call him Granddad Reese. And he had a life-size King Tut sarcophagus in his living room in an Anubis. And since I was like 5 or 6, ever since I used to go to his house, the image would just speak to me. And now I can describe what was happening. It was basically, reminding my DNA of what's in there. Mm-hmm. And it was speaking to the codes in my DNA. But at that age, I couldn't understand that. It was just, for some reason, I feel drawn. I feel like this is me. And so I just grew up with an innate instinctual attraction to ancient Egypt. When I would be in middle school or elementary school, if my history class was on whatever they were on, I would still be on the Egypt page. Mm-hmm. And I was smart enough to not pay attention and still pass the test. So I've always been drawn to Egypt. I have a tattoo on my neck. It's not really, professionally done, but I got it at 15. Mm-hmm. It says awaken. I got my 3 little stars for Orion's belt. So that's just to, let people know that I've been attracted to this identity in this historical lineage.
So you've been drawn there?
Yes.
Okay. Now I've gone on 3 sacred journeys to Egypt.
Yes, sir.
And it's a quite fascinating place. When you get there, there's certain vortexes and the energy is quite different and other things open up right as you're there. So with you and this drive, then for the people that are just now meeting you, why is your message important?
Because my message is the message that they're telling themselves, but they're not listening to, which is to restore your mind. Everything that humans make is based off anatomy. The Egyptians built ancient Egypt based off the human body and the human, spirit. Plumbing is your digestive system. We was the first plumbers. Electricity or the electrical system is your nervous system. The head of the nation, the thinker, that's the brain. So, we make cars, houses, and everything based off the template created by the ancient African Egyptians. And entire civilization, as glorious achievement, the goal was to constantly restore, regenerate, and develop mental health. And people don't realize that because we're not in the awareness of our being to understand that we are the mind. And if you're not aware of something, you cannot be aware of maintaining it. So we say the first key to everything you do is what? Self-preservation. But what level of yourself are you aware of? Because if you're only aware of your physical self, that's the only self you're trying to preserve. So we in a world right now where everybody's trying to preserve their body and they don't realize you're the soul in this body. So 9 out of 10 things that people go through, anxiety, depression, criminal behavior, all of these things are spawning from a fictional understanding of yourself. Even the way we feel about ourselves. you not really looking at yourself from yourself. So one example I like to give is, I tell everybody, raise your hand. And then they raise their hand and I say, did you raise your hand consciously? Did you give the command to this body to raise the hand? Did your hand just shoot up uncontrollably? And they say, I told myself to raise my hand. And I say, that means you're controlling the body. So if you're controlling the body, you can't be the body. So who are you? And if you can come to this realization and then hold it and then think from this perspective, you have now just went to 4D. And if you can stay on 4D for as long as possible throughout your day, you have another thought pattern that you can access and that you can operate from. And this is the level of operation that our ancestors operated from. So my message to people is, you are self-sabotaging the quality of your own life because you are asleep and you have not accessed a higher level of your own awareness. So you got women that wake up in the morning and go get plastic surgery because they look in the mirror and they don't feel beautiful. But that's because you are looking at you from a lower dimension. You are looking at yourself from a lower perspective. If you realize you're not your body, you no longer become attached to certain things. It's like the English language, right? I always go into the occult. The word and the letter I is a double-edged sword because depending on depending on your conception and your intention of when you say it, you associate yourself to your vessel. So you say, I'm hungry, then you forget that you're not the body. So now you subscribe yourself to your hunger, but you're not the body. If you say, I'm ugly, you forget that this is not you. This is just your car. This is your vessel that you express yourself on this plane with. So you attach yourself to that. So even just speaking this English language, we attach ourselves to many falsehoods that just create hellish states in our mind, a constant state of suffering that we can easily let go if we just realize who we are.
They're taking in fundamentally the entire fiber network inside the United States and collecting all that data and storing it in a program for they call it Stellar Wind is the name for their program. That's the domestic collection of data on U.S. citizens to other U.S. citizens, everything we're doing. Phone calls, emails, and then financial transactions, credit cards, things like that. Yeah, all of it.
Now, Bill Binney has said that with 10 people in 30 days, he can identify every traitor, every elite pedophile, and every white-collar criminal. We have it all. Once the president gets Binney into NSA and processes 100% of what we have at NSA, we have every single one of you by the balls. You cannot survive this. You have one out.
Let me know what y'all think about this, man. Leave it in the comments, man. Young Pharaoh just seems like a good guy. He seems like a really a good young kid. With knowledge of self. I think sometimes, our opinions just get the best of us sometimes. And I think that this is what the case is. I think that his opinions just got the best of him because listening to him, he speaks very well. And I commend him for being a very well-spoken young man. But we also have to take into consideration people's religious beliefs, and not just religious beliefs, people's sexual preferences and many other things in life. Because we're living in a climate now where we have to respect everyone or there will be backlash. And we've been seeing this in many walks of life, not just internet, not just YouTube. The president, Trump, was even canceled. So just thinking about that, I feel very sorry for young Pharaoh. Worked so hard to get all of his following, and he has a great following. All of his following support him very passionately. His supporters support him very passionately. And I hope that you are still supporting him if you are a supporter of him. Our hearts go out to young Pharaoh and his page being canceled. So I'm going to go and I'm going to upload part 2. So if you like this one, you can leave a like, subscribe to the channel now, Uda Block on YouTube right now, subscribe. And I'm going to play part 2. to this great interview of Young Pharaoh by Leon Kennedy. Subscribe to the channel now for more content. Uda, uda, uda.